What's up, and welcome to Mindful. Hi, Ashlyn.
Hey, Darby.
How are you?
Doing good.
Good. Fantastic. This is my friend Ashlyn. She's a pastor at Chase Oaks. She's an expert on a couple of different things. I would say you're an expert at Enneagram oneness, expert at coffee making.
Ooh.
And I would say expert in like relationship theories, not like dating or anything, but just like having good relationships in your life. Like you're someone I think is very wise about that, which is why I wanted to talk to you today. Is there anything else you're an expert at that we should know about though?
I'm an expert at keeping a very messy home.
Oh, fantastic.
Really good at that.
I like that. Someone has to be the best.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at it.
Yes, and it's you. That's excellent.
Going for that gold, so.
Amazing. So this podcast is called Mindful because it's about how our lives are full. There's a lot going on in my brain all the time. Yours as well, I'm sure. And it's really easy to just kind of get lost in all the stuff that's happening and not just focus on the one thing that's most important today in this moment that God's trying to teach us right now. So that's what Mindful is about, is being mindful of that one thing.
Yeah.
And the last few weeks, we've been talking about ugly beautiful, which is kind of thinking through how life is really amazing and can also be so horrible at the same time.
Yeah.
You probably know a thing or two about that. And today we're talking about relationships and what that means for ugly beautiful, which is going to be really fun. So thanks for being here.
I love it. Happy to be here.
So I know this is a little, you're not supposed to do this, but you are pregnant, right?
I am pregnant.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Good. That would be really bad. It'd be really good to
Giant
cut.
basketball on my shirt. Sorry.
And you have a little one at home as well.
I do. Yeah. 18
and you have a
months.
husband.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of feels like it takes a village to do all that, like just to have those people in your house and your family, and then also you work full time, you have other friends, you're like part of your community. So talk about maybe how relationships play into that, and what are some key relationships in your life right now?
Sure. Well, I think first and foremost, the key would be my wonderful husband. He's very helpful around the house and with the kids and all that kind of stuff. So very grateful for him. But we, as a couple, need a village around us.
True.
And so I've actually had a really good friend of mine, Haley, and she's stepped into my mess in a very real way. She comes over like weekly. She was like, I want you to give me a day and I want to come over weekly and just serve you.
Oh.
And it's kind of weird, like being served in your own home, somebody doing your dishes while you're like holding your toddler. Like it's a weird feeling.
Yes, you're not paying this person.
No, right. But it's been really helpful.
Oh.
Like I feel like she's the other half of my brain right now of helping me plan through things, think through things. And I also have the privilege of working with her quite a bit. And so I just get to process all of life with her right now. And so she's been helpful not only like in the physical things, cooking, cleaning, helping with my son, but also just in the relational and emotional needs that I have right now. So I've been really grateful for her. And
that's so cool. Yeah. Okay, and you're like me, I think, a little bit in that I feel really good about my friendships and relationships when I'm the one who like has things together.
Right.
Like when I'm the one who's like I'll help you. Like I have so much to offer you. Like let me help. But I feel much more awkward about being the one who is helped or letting people see the parts of my life that aren't great. Like I feel even uncomfortable about like having people over to my messy house sometimes, let alone like come into my messy emotional state. Right. Do you relate to that, first of all?
100%.
Okay, and then how do that doesn't feel like a very helpful thing, to like stay there. It doesn't feel very Jesus-y. So am I right? And then what do we do about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, and sorry if this cuts, but it cuts me too, girl. I think at the end of the day, it kind of boils down to pride in a sense.
No,
like,
shut up.
We want to do it all ourselves, and we don't think that we need anyone. But I actually believe Scripture says in multiple places that like we need each other.
Yeah.
We're designed that way. It's actually a part of how we were created was to be in community with each other. Yes. And we need others to meet our needs. And so in the same way you delight in stepping into other people's messes and helping them out, and like that's a joy for you. That would be a joy for someone else. That would be a joy for me to do for your life. And so having that recognition of like those moments where I'm like, Haley's doing my dishes and I'm like fighting my urge to step up and like serve her and be like, you sit down, let me get you some food, is when I have to remember like, I would love to do this for her one day. And I have to trust that she's loving doing this for me. She asked to be a part of this, and it's uncomfortable and it's vulnerable. And I still have that like urge to get up, but she's been a blessing. I want to bless her in that way. So even having that reminder. And I also think about, it's in the mess that I feel like love operates in its truest form.
Yeah.
Of, there's a quote by Timothy Keller where he talks about like, to be known and not loved is our greatest fear, but to be fully known and fully loved is a lot like being loved by God.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that quote because, God has stepped into our mess. He's seen all of the broken pieces on our very worst day, yet he still sent Jesus to die on the cross for our sins and to save us. And that Jesus came to be Emmanuel, God with us. He wants to be with us. He wants to dwell with us. And that amidst our brokenness, he wants to love us then. And if we bear his image, how much more do we get to exemplify love in doing that for others and allowing others to do that for us.
Okay. All right. Word. I will remember that. That's beautiful. Thanks for saying that. Mic drop. You mentioned Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a big deal. Like he's kind of the guy. He's the guy we follow. And he had some interesting thoughts, maybe not thoughts, but like ways he lived his life with relationships, right? And I feel like that's probably something worth paying attention to. Can you talk to us a little bit about how Jesus thought about his relationships?
For sure. I really love Jesus's model of relationships because you almost see it in like tears. Or I consider it like rings.
Okay. Yeah.
And so you see, first and foremost, Jesus goes off alone to pray frequently in the Bible. And so we see as an individual relationship with God the Father, which if you've decided to follow Jesus, that's one thing that we would want to have, right? Is a relationship individually with God the Father. And then he has like his three besties. So this is like John, James, Peter. They're considered his inner three in some circles. And they're like the closest friends of him. They saw the transfiguration. They saw him in really intimate spaces that the other disciples didn't get to be a part of. So that kind of leads us to that third ring, which is his 12 disciples who walked very closely and did ministry with him and saw him in a lot of life. Beyond that, he had 70 followers that walked with him while he did ministry and learned from him and probably had plenty of one-on-one conversations. And beyond that, there was just individuals that he interacted with, like the woman at the well, like different people that he just had the privilege of conversing with. And so we see that he treated all of them with love and with respect and with kindness, but there was varying levels of intimacy with each group. And so he had those that stayed really close to him that he let see more than others further outside of those rings would see, yet he still approached all of them with grace. And so I think it's valuable that if you've chosen to follow Jesus, if we've chosen to follow Jesus, that we have an individual relationship with God the Father, those closest to us have similar values to us, but that we continue to extend love and grace to everyone we interact with and lend a listening ear like Jesus did.
Okay, that's pretty wise. Maybe he knew what was up.
I think he did.
I like that.
He's a good guy.
I think a quote or a theory is coming to mind. I'm sure I watched a TikTok or something about it. It's so embarrassing. I'm sorry. But it talked about how like one way to measure emotional health or one way to think about it is if you have like appropriate levels of intimacy with different types of people. Right. So it's like the people who are closest to you, who are safe. Like, are you able to be truly yourself and share your honest thoughts and like be who you are, and then kind of going rings out from that? Like, are you able to have like safe and fun relationships with friends, and then outside of that, like acquaintances or loose ties? Like, are you able to have just kind, fun interactions with people who don't know you, but you're not necessarily spilling your guts to people you don't know well? And it made me think of boundaries and just how all that plays in. So maybe talk to me a little bit about that, because that feels like an important part of this conversation too.
Well, I'm a student pastor, and so I have the privilege of interacting with a lot of students. And one of the things we talk about is sharing our story. And so I always tell them, like, hey, you can be vague, and that doesn't mean you're not being vulnerable. Like, and I think that we kind of see that within different levels of intimacy. Somebody can ask how I'm doing, and I can be like, you know what, it's been a hard week, and I can stop there. I can be vulnerable in that it's been a hard week, but I can stop there versus those closest to me that I indulge more in. And then, there are some people that if they have continuously kind of like shoved you down in life and that you're not seeing a lot of good, if any good, come from their relationship. I actually believe boundaries are helpful, and I believe the boundaries are biblical, but it's when they're done out of health. They're not done out of hatred. So it's not like, I'm cutting you off because you're the worst, but rather like, hey, I see that this is an unsafe space for you to step into. And so therefore, that way you don't say something that is hurtful, and I don't have to receive something hurtful. I'm gonna set a boundary there. Okay. And be vague, but not necessarily taking away from the vulnerability.
That's genius. I like that. Boundaries out of health and not hatred.
Yeah.
That's really good. That is good stuff. Do you have any final thoughts for someone who's watching who's like, ooh, okay, sounds good, but I don't know. Do you have any words for people who maybe like this in theory, but in practice it's a little harder?
Right. I think that's the bottom line is
because
like
I'm that person.
It sounds great, right? But in practice, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
And so, I think that it comes with like a lot of discernment of letting people into our life and letting them see our mess is really risky. Like it's our greatest fear is to be known,
right,
and not loved. And so it's a risky thing. And so I think taking the time to step into it slowly, like maybe share a little bit, and see how it's responded to and test the waters. But the bottom line is, if we want to have great relationships, we've got to let people see some of our messiness. And so taking one step at a time and seeing what happens and praying for the discernment and the wisdom to go to the right people, and also being that person. Like if you don't know how to step into that space quite yet and you're figuring it out, be that person first. Step into other people's messes, and it might even show you that in the same way you love loving others, somebody will love loving you.
Oh, wow. Well done. That's a word right there. Little risks. I like that. That's good stuff. Thank you. Thanks for your wisdom and genius in thinking through relationships, and that is awesome. And hey, thank you for joining us for Mindful. This is so fun to get to do every week with different people who can help us just live our lives a little bit better.
For sure.
And if you're in DFW, we're in Plano here now, but if you're in the DFW area, we'd love to see you at Chase Oaks Church. You can come to a service in person or watch online, whatever's better for you. But we take these conversations even deeper at church, which is really fun.
Right.
So, man, it's been great hanging out with you, and we'll see you next time on Mindful.